Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Wednesday the 18th of December. I'm Stephen Ridgway. You might have seen floating around on the news that there is a critical Apache Struts flaw. It is CVE 2024 53677 with a CVSS score of 9.5 out of 10, which makes it critical on that scale. Patches are available. So it is important that if you are using struts, and you should probably by now know if you're using struts after the last time struts got severely hit. Hopefully your struts patching processes that you developed from the last major vulnerability and exploits are still applicable, and you'll be able to get on top of this. The patched version is 6.4.0 or greater. So the vulnerable versions are 2.0.0 to 2.3.37, which is end of life, and you shouldn't be using it anyway. Also vulnerable is 2.5.0 to 2.5.33, and struts 6.0.0 to struts 6.3.0.2. So basically the solution to this is upgrade to struts 6.4. There are exploits that are now being seen, which is why this has why I decided to bring this to your attention now rather than, I don't talk about every vulnerability that's out there, because otherwise this would become the most boring briefing on the planet. If it isn't, is it? No. Well, yes. I mean, it's hard enough to make this stuff interesting at the best of times, isn't it? But anyway, look, there we go. Must be nearly Christmas. So if you're using Apache struts, best to upgrade ASAP. Obviously, if you're not able to upgrade for whatever reasons, do make sure you've done a business risk assessment around that fact, and that you are putting in place mitigations. And bear in mind, if you are senior in cyber in an organization, risk management is rarely a general, all right, I'm going to go on a limb. It's rarely an applicable mitigation. So just to remind you that if you take a risk to the board, and the board sign off on that risk, what they have in their minds signed off on is that, yes, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. CISO, you have, we accept that you now own that risk. Okay, there won't be any actual emotional buy-in, and do expect to get kicked in the arse if you get compromised via that, regardless of whether you took the risk to the business or not. Now, that isn't how risk management is supposed to work. That's just how it works in most organizations most of the time. So yes, we accept the risk means, yep, we accept that you have a risk. Interesting one. Okay. Now, under the category of yet more things that can be spoofed, phishers are using like spoofed calendar invites in phishing emails. It's the usual sort of thing. Get you to click on something that looks fairly legitimate, which leads you to a login prompt, which then looks like it's legitimate but isn't, and then nicks your login details. The good ones will in real time be capturing any second factor authentication that you put in place, and in real time we'll be using that to log in. Presumably it's a race condition if you do that, but either way, no, there isn't. Of course, there isn't, because you're not talking to the original anyway. They are, yeah. So right, yeah, that would work. Interesting, actually, whether passkey authentication can be captured and reused like that. Yeah, good question. Don't know. Have to look into that one. Suspect it probably can't. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, most important thing with this article is be aware that this is going on. Mostly these attacks are being sent to people who may be seen as vulnerable to financial phishing. So the phishing emails contain a .ics calendar link, which leads out to whatever. You click on the link, you're then prompted to click on something that asks you to log in, blah, 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 blah. And then they've got you. So be cautious about clicking on anything which comes to you unsolicited. So if you reach out to somebody and they send you something back, that's one thing. If you get something that comes to you that looks really interesting, if you don't know who they are, be cautious about clicking stuff that they send to you. So kind of obvious. Anyway, look, there we are. ICS files are being used for this as well, mainly because a lot of endpoint protection and browser protections are not specifically blocking or checking ICS files. And if the ICS file opens up a calendar event, the calendar event has got something in it that you need to click, you can see that may not be a scenario that your endpoint protection has necessarily understood. So the initial ICS file may not be blocked. It is malicious. And then finally from me today, a little bit of good news. CISA has released secure practices for Microsoft 365 cloud services. I'm sure if you are a regular listener to this, you will be aware of the fact that I have a lot of time for CISA and NIST and some of these other US federal agencies. I think they do a sterling job. Yes, I know that they are directly focused on protecting the federal government in the US, but there's an enormous amount of stuff that can be reused. And unlike all of these other pay-to-play frameworks, they give this stuff away for free. So it's both better, more comprehensive, and it doesn't cost anything. So when they come up with something like a secure practices for cloud services, they call them directives, but it is definitely something worth looking at. They use an assessment tool called Scuba, just to confuse anybody that does deep sea diving. But worth a look. There's an article from GB Hackers, which we will link to the briefing, that then links out to the actual details around CISA's guidance, but to give you an overview without having to go through reading through lots of very dry US federal stuff. It gives you an overview of what this does, and gives you a feel for what you might get from using it. We are going to be undoubtedly spending some time looking in more details at what the recommendations are here, because there's going to be some good stuff in there, definitely. There's going to be a load of stuff that I think you would look at and go, oh, that's common sense, because let's be honest, the best security is the common sense stuff, the really clever stuff. Well, yeah, only important if you've got the basics right. Okay, that is all from me for today. I hope you have a good Wednesday, and I hope your countdown to Christmas is beginning or has begun already. And I will now shut up and speak to you again tomorrow morning.